AITA for buying off my family home and not giving it back to my uncles and fracturing the family. Post, first time posting here, apologies in advance for any mistakes, but I'm writing this on my phone while on a train. Hello, I am Nath, 29M, and this is a story about my family, on my father's side. A bit of background first. We have always been well off, so to speak. My grandfather founded a flourishing business in the 70s, and he worked in it along with my father and my two uncles, let's call them Mark and Paul. He also built a beautiful villa in the French countryside near the Côte d'Azur, and I spent every summer there, forming some of the fondest memories I have. When my granddad decided to retire in the early my uncles decided to cash out of the family enterprise and my dad bought their part of the business, and they went their separate ways. As I said, I used to spend my summers in my granddad's home, and we formed a special bond. I am named after him, the first grandchild, you know how thing goes. He was instrumental in shaping me as the person I am today, and I will be forever grateful to him. Back to my uncles, they never married and never settled down, but both fancied themselves as excellent entrepreneurs. Spoiler, they weren't, and in 20-odd years they burned through their money with wrong and short-sighted investments. In 2020, when the pandemic hit, they were basically penniless, and they asked my grandfather to move in with him in the villa. Granddad was reluctant but accepted because he was getting old and didn't like to rely too much on the home nurse my dad was paying for. So they moved in the villa and started fancying themselves as the owners. Time went on, my granddad's health got worse. He started to show signs of dementia and, in order to settle his affairs before it was too late, he decided to liquidate his estate. He passed the villa's deed in their name. My dad was not part of it because he got an apartment in the city. Every one of his children and grandchildren received an even partition of his money, and the rest of it, the biggest part, was put in a fund. The fund is managed by his best friend, a lawyer, who had the duty of liquidating it on my granddad's death. Granddad never wanted to go to a nursing home, so in exchange for a bigger sum of money on his death, he had my uncles promise that they will take care of him because they were living in the same house. Although the lawyer said that if they put him in other people's full care, like a nursing home or my dad, the money would not be theirs anymore. Of course, my uncles started talking about selling the house as soon as they signed the documents, saying that it costed too much. They were spending my granddad's money either way, and it was too big for the three of them alone. They needed the money, that much was clear. My dad even offered to help them in order to keep them in the house, but they refused. So they sold the villa and got a nice, fat check. They rented an apartment in Italy and moved there with my granddad, who, right now, is totally gone due to his dementia, and hired a full-time nurse to help them, whose pay is split equally between them and my dad. The house was sold to a development company which, for reasons unknown, decided not to build over it but to sell it again. I really don't know why they pulled this move, but it's not the subject of my post. Ever since moving in the apartment, my uncles started to complain about how cramped it was and complaining about the financial burden of having to care for my granddad. My dad always gives them money for granddad-related stuff, but they're always asking for more. My siblings and I always make a point to show up there at least once a week to help them and keep granddad company. I started working 3 years ago as soon as I graduated and used my part of the money to buy myself a car and invest in safe stocks my dad suggests. It has not grown exponentially, I am no millionaire, but I managed to recover the car money and add to it a little bit. Plus, I have my trust fund set up by my dad. It's safe to say that, between family and job, I am comfortable. So, when I saw that the development company was selling the villa again, I started asking myself, well, why the asterisk not? As I said, I have the fondest memories in that place, and I always loved its position, near to the Côte d'Azur but still in a rustic and authentic area. I work from remote, so I have no problem moving to France. For days, it was just a fantasy, until I confided it to my dad. He said that he would love to see the house back in the family and even offered to cover for part of it, as a gift. I phoned a couple of old school friends now working in banks, and they offered me pretty reasonable interest rates for a mortgage because my dad was available to co-sign with me. I took some time to decide because this will likely shape the next 20 to 30 years of my life, but I found that I really did want to keep that place. So I said okay, let's do it. I decided not to tell my uncles because I wanted it to be a surprise for my granddad in one of his rare moments of lucidity. We signed the documents last March and the deed become mine. I posted about it on my Instagram account with some silly caption about having grown up and being a true homeowner now. You know, a stupid joke. My uncles called me like 3 hours after seeing the post. At first, their tone was congratulatory, good for you for keeping the house in the family, and stuff like that. Then Uncle M dropped the bomb, so, when can we move in with Granddad again? I laughed because I genuinely thought it was a joke. Spoiler, it wasn't. Now that the house is back in the family, we can move him again and stay there. The apartment is so cramped. It followed a very long discussion about the fact that I had a duty to take into my house, because of all the sacrifices they did for the family. They even pulled the card of me not caring for my granddad. I told them, well, let's do this. I'll take only Grandpa in the house, and you're free to do whatever you want. Of course, they wouldn't hear of this. Not because they love Grandpa, they really don't, but because they want his money and know that his lawyer always checks on things. A couple of days later, they showed up at the house. It's like a 4 hours drive from where they live now, and started berating me. They even tried to get inside, saying I had no right to keep them out of their house. I asked how it was different from the development company, and they said that I was family and family is different. They left only after I dialed the police number on my phone. Since then, they started smearing my name on social media and in the family, telling everyone who will listen that I am a piece of asterisk, 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 because I'd rather have my demented granddad live in a cramped apartment instead of the house he built. People in the family know them very well and nobody really trusts them. The uncles even tried to show up at my dad's office, but this backfired. They basically admitted that they are running out of money. See, I didn't know this, but they always had a gambling problem. Back when it was my granddad holding the purse, he managed to keep them in check, but since he started to lose his mind it became worse and worse. My father presented them with the same proposal I did. Let's have him in the villa and continue to pay the nurse. But again they flatly refused, accusing him of being after the extra money. My uncles even drafted a legal letter to the lawyer, demanding him to order me to take them into my house. The lawyer laughed in their faces, of course, and told them that it wouldn't be a problem to move my granddad to my house, but he had no power to compel me to take them. Now we are at an impasse. My uncles refuse to let me, my dad and my siblings see our grandfather, only allowing the lawyer to visit from time to time. They say that it's clear we don't care enough. As a consequence, the family basically split. My dad doesn't speak to them and limits himself to cover the costs of the nurse and the health bills. I find myself living in my dream home. I started renovating it on my own. But at the same time this new chapter, which should have been a new beginning in my life, is turning somewhat sour because all the beautiful memories of a happy family in that house did not live up to the present, in which that same happy family is split and sour. Edit 1. To those who are suggesting to take legal action against the uncles, there are talks of involving the authorities. The attorney tells us that from what he can see and from the reports of the nurse, they are not mistreating him and that's what matters, but there are talks in place about it. We would like to avoid a full suit. Comment. Since relationships are already destroyed, can you go to the authorities and your grandfather's power of attorney and file elder abuse charges? They're holding your grandfather hostage and he's no doubt suffering. Adult or senior services can remove grandfather from their apartment and may be legally placed with you or a place of your father's choosing. Get the POA to investigate for mismanagement of funds and have uncles charged too. There are talks of involving the authorities. The attorney tells us that from what he can see and from the reports of the nurse, they are not mistreating him and that's what matters, but there are talks in place.